All right, we're live.
All right.
All right, Tint
After,
Wisdom 136 after a few minutes of adjustments. How you doing today, Chris?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Very well. Thanks for
What are you
coming.
drinking?
Oh, I'm drinking water actually.
Okay.
Um,
That's all I drink.
Say what? Yeah, I drink. I was drinking coffee and like
Okay.
all the time, like all the time. And
Right.
for I don't know, maybe 10 years, I heard my wife tell me that I was probably dehydrated, and I was definitely dehydrated. Definitely
Yeah.
very dehydrated, and I feel a lot better when I drink a lot of water now. So.
Yeah, it's so much better. Yeah, I haven't drank caffeine. Look, don't get me wrong. I love the taste of, first of all, I love the taste of espresso
Mhm.
and I love Coca-Cola. Like, I love the taste of Coca-Cola. Cherry Coke or regular Coke for me is like the epitome of like heaven on earth perfection. But I only drink one maybe, I don't know, once every 6 months. But if I have Chinese food, buddy, I need to have a Coca-Cola. They go hand in hand.
It's a good timing. Chinese food, pizza, special events.
Yeah, yeah. I've been for all of that.
So, today, first of all, thanks for, last week. Manny, what a guy. And I appreciate you introducing him to me and having him come on here and everything. Uh, it was kind of ringing in my head today. I was just thinking about how we were talking about the IWFA last week, and I was like, what a perfect guy to be on the IWFA. Like, I don't think he is, but I would, recommend him a million. I would nominate him to the highest level because that is somebody with, I feel like he has the years of experience, like the decades of experience, but he still sees all of what's in the future and he's well connected with the present. And like, that's what you need, you need that total package to be able to really be effective, in my opinion. And he is, you know, an
Yeah, he is
example.
there. I agree with you. Like when I first met him in person, I was so incredibly impressed by him. I mean, fact of the matter is he's got a wealth of knowledge. He's very comfortable in sharing it. And, he can speak to the largest corporate crowd just as easily can speak to like, you know, at a normal level, like mine or yours, like an installer level, if you want to call it that. Like, I think he's a jack of all trades, and I really think that he did an amazing job last week. I called him afterwards. I said, "Bro, like you killed it. Like you made me look bad. I can't go on with you again."
Well, I appreciate you coming on this week and specifically to talk about Permaplate. And, as always, if there's questions about anything in the world, they're always welcome. But, being able to talk about that subject, which is a big subject because it was a very large acquisition in dollar amounts and I think in just like value. And it's awesome to be able to get to speak to you about it and you to be open to people's questions and to have that open communication because that's really what it's about. Usually, like when there's great communication, everyone wins, and when there's no communication, everyone loses. So it's really admirable that you came on here today to talk about that stuff because usually I feel like stuff like that is like behind closed doors, hush hush stuff that nobody really talks about outside of the company. From
Yeah, and I think that for a lot of companies, that exactly is how they carry something like that off. And I understand. Like, look, I'm not trying to say that other companies and the way that they do things is wrong and ours is right. I just prefer our model to be very open about things, and I think we've got some good reasons behind it. And I think that that speaks true to our clientele versus being hush hush about it. Because unfortunately, you sit there and you hypothesize what is the reason for the acquisition or what is the reason for the big change? What are they up to? And if you don't get answers, you start developing your own answers in your own mind, or they pop up online and like I saw a lot of stuff being sent to me that was being talked about online, afterwards, and some people found it really contentious, especially the Permaplate acquisition, and I was laughing in my head because I'm like, wow, like you guys all thought that when we merged with Veloce and Harry Rahman, you guys thought that was like unbelievable and what a great acquisition it was. And yet, when we did the Permaplate deal, there was a number of people who were like, "Oh, you see, look at what XPEL is really up to, and this is what they're planning on doing against you." And look, I know that a lot of those posts were done by some of my competitors. I have a couple of competitors that I'm quite familiar with that that purposely ask or load the lips of some of their clientele to get online and to post some negative stuff and to try and, swing that idea in people's minds. I laugh at it, but if you want me to address it, I can address it full on. Or if you have questions in mind first, whatever you think is more appropriate.
Well, yeah, I guess why don't we start with first of all, I know I think there's a little delay on the software, but I think it'll catch up. So we'll just keep going. I'm just saying in case anybody notices. I'm kind of aware on my end, but I think we're good to go. So why don't we start off just kind of by if you could talk about a little bit like what is Permaplate as a company? Like what do they do? Who are they prior to the
Sure.
acquisition?
So Permaplate was a company that had been started some time ago by a gentleman with the name of David Jorgensen. And I know that there were some other key players with David at that time. I'm not saying he did it solely on his own. But what their main focus was to go after dealership business specifically, and not only just sell to dealerships, but sell both the labor and the material. So, they were approaching dealerships and saying, "Hey, look, we think that you've got a situation where it's very difficult to keep installers in house. It's very difficult to keep them satisfied, and you're constantly going through this battle of training a new person and bringing another person on. And so what we could do for you instead is we could provide the labor component of that, and in turn, we could really satisfy or maybe fill the holes that you've been experiencing." And so they grew this to quite a large business. They were in many different states, a lot of employees. I think the number is over 250 employees. Obviously, a lot of that's installers. Obviously, a lot of that's sales, management, fixed ops. Just a massive powerhouse. And one of the things that I love about XPEL is that they don't call them acquisitions, right? They don't look at it as in, hey, we bought somebody, because first of all, it seems really pompous, and second of all, it makes you sound superior and the other person's not at that level, and that's not true. Permaplate was doing something that XPEL had not been able to accomplish. I don't know that we had ever approached it in the same direction as they had, but we saw their success, and we called it a merger. Just like Veloce, like when Harry Rahman came on board, we did
Mm.
not call Veloce an acquisition. We called it a merger. And whether we forked over some bucks for it or not, it's still to us internally thought of as a merge between two great companies that together will be even better than we were beforehand. So going back to the Permaplate acquisition, yeah, I mean, or sorry, I shouldn't use that word, acquisition, merger. Um, we just saw an opportunity to join two companies up where they were doing a much better job in an area that we weren't doing a very good job in at all. In comparison, they figured out this labor component part of it, and in turn, through speaking with those people, and it was above my pay grade, to be very candid with you. I didn't even know about it until after it was already done. But the like-minded individuals came together, figured out the deal that made sense for everybody, and put it together. So, you know, Permaplate is no longer Permaplate, right? Permaplate is now a part of XPEL, or XPEL is a part of Permaplate, but renamed underneath XPEL, whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
Just like Veloce, that's another thing that I love about XPEL, and this is a personal thing. Um, our company doesn't believe in the idea of mergers and then trying to market and advertise another brand name against our own. And there are other companies out there, and some great companies out there, where when they do an acquisition, they keep that brand name separate and they continue to work on that brand name, maybe, or maybe they just continue to use the brand name. I don't know. But the reality is that a lot of the brands that they're acquiring don't have the budget for marketing, don't spend millions of dollars a year in marketing like XPEL and 3M does. And so, in turn, now they've got this new company that they've put into their fold. And if they are going to market anything for it, where's that marketing dollars coming from? Well, it's obviously coming from their existing brands, because that have the marketing dollars to begin with. So again, going back to the Permaplate thing, we don't call it Permaplate anymore. We just everything's just called XPEL. As always, just like Veloce. You know, a lot of people are asking me, "Hey, is Veloce sticking around?" And I'm like, "Look, I seriously doubt it because we don't want to use XPEL Vision to compete against your XPEL Veloce. It's not good for anybody, in our personal opinion. We have another manufacturer out there, or who obviously thinks the opposite. Great for them if that's working for them. I'm super happy for them, but on our end, it's not what we're after.
It gets very confusing for the customer because you can have a brand that could be a high end brand, but if they haven't heard of it, and if you're marketing obviously six brands instead of one brand, it's division of a pie any way you slice it because, like you said, your marketing budget goes somewhere. So, okay, so dealer installation, how does that, if in any way, does that affect, let's say, a installation company now, company that does obviously expel window tint, maybe paint protection as well. How does this acquisition affect them if it does?
Yeah, so I mean, we would call that an independent, right?
Or
And
merger.
we have it focused strictly on retail,
Mm-hmm.
and we have independents that focus on wholesale.
Mm-hmm.
It's the independents, both of those independents benefit greatly from it, and I'll explain both avenues. Let's first deal with the independent that doesn't do wholesale work and just does strictly retail. The the and we're going to refer to Permaplate obviously in terms of history versus now being XPEL. In historically speaking, yes, they did purchase a little bit from XPEL, but the vast majority of their purchases were going through another top brand, another manufacturer. And so the reality is that those dealerships that they were servicing were using another brand, and they were not advertising a brand at all. They were actually staying away from that. Where again, going back to XPEL's model, with the merger of the two coming together, our intention is to have everything that was being looked after by Permaplate, obviously first and foremost being using XPEL now. And there's some legacy accounts that we have to obviously deal with in terms of contractual agreements and stuff like that, where maybe it's not fully XPEL yet, but it certainly will be at some point soon. But our biggest thing, of course, is making sure that all those firms that are having film put on their vehicles at this point are having addendums with the XPEL name on it, having branding put up inside the dealerships and things of that nature, and telling everybody and anybody, hey, this is XPEL that's going on this car. And I think that was very logical. The brand that they were using before, while it's a phenomenal manufacturer, does not have much in terms of consumer awareness. They have a lot of awareness from the installer standpoint and the store standpoint, but their consumer awareness is quite low in comparison, I feel, to XPEL or 3M. And so maybe that's one of the reasons why they didn't feel it would be valuable to capitalize on that using a brand name. I don't know. All I know is that for us, it is very valuable to capitalize on the brand name. We are thought of as the high-end brand, and we don't want to lose that image. And so the more that word is getting out there, the better for the independents, because it's just ultimately a lot of free advertising. And I think that it's no secret that not every customer believes that the price they're paying at a dealership is the appropriate price. And not only that, that maybe the workmanship at the dealership level is not the same as it is at an independent installer level. So I think that for that reason as well, you can imagine that if the name that's being used is XPEL on the addendum and in the dealership showrooms and in the dealership drive-throughs and stuff like that, and the consumer's going, yeah, I know that I can get my XPEL here, but I know I got an XPEL shop that my buddies used or I've used in the past or whatever. I'm going to reach out to them directly. I think that that's going to see a very positive effect. As a matter of fact, I think it's got zero negative effect whatsoever for the independents that don't do wholesale at all. The bigger question, of course, was the ones that do wholesale.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with the ones that do wholesale, their worry, which of course is logical, is, hey, wait a second, is XPEL going to be competing against me for my customer?
Right.
And I feel very, very emphatic in the idea that we've always stated quite clearly that is never our intention. We do not want to compete against our independence. We as XPEL know that it's because of our independence that help us get to where we are. In just 5 years, we go from $150 million company to I don't know, I think it's around 2 billion market valuation right now, which is, I mean, unfathomably extreme, amazing. But It's our independence that helped us get there. It's our marketing that helped us get there. It's our adapt that helped us get there. It's of course our product lines that helped us get there. I get it, but the independents have played a massive role in that, massive.
Mhm.
And the last thing we want to do is hurt those independents. We want to help them always. So again, this is another part that made me laugh because I saw some of the stuff that was being sent to me in terms of some of these people that are posting this negative stuff, and I'm like, man, you have it so backwards. When it was the Permaplate, and they were using predominantly, I think, well over 90% of this other company's product. You can bet that they were going in and trying to get any single client they could that was an XPEL customer. If they walked into a dealership and it said XPEL, they were like, "Yeehaw! This is what I'm attacking, and I'm going after. And I'm going to try and land this account." But as you know already from previous conversations, we don't want even our independents hurting each other if we can avoid that in any way, shape, or form. And so now that we bring the Permaplate and the XPEL together underneath one umbrella, we literally had a very straightforward conversation with everybody that was Permaplate that's now expelled. That, hey, we need you to be aware of how we do business and how it's a little different. A, we like to go with the idea of exclusivity. B, we like to go with the exclusivity into the idea of being a somewhat understanding of territorial or regional agreements or metrics. And C, if you walk into a dealership, your new first question, other than hello, how is, are you currently doing an in-house program? Okay, if you're not, are you currently offering it? If you're currently offering it, is it being offered third party then? If the answer is yes, you must find out what brand they're using. And if they're using XPEL, it's at that point that you're expected to say, hey, you know what? You're being used by one of our sister operations already. We're thanking you so much for having your business. We already have it, so we'll see you later. And I can tell you, if Joel Valencia is on this call right now from Charleston Window Films, that was a really big conversion for us recently that happened as a huge thanks to Jason Carr from Guardian Security Window Film, my good buddy. Um, sorry, Joel was using another brand from that same company that we're talking about that has multiple brands underneath their one lineup or underneath their one umbrella. And he was working to try and secure a couple of local dealerships for some in-house work and some preload work. He's got, I think, 3 shops now, or it's 2. No, it's 3 shops, I believe, now at this point, and he had shops in different locations. And here's an opportunity. Well, lo and behold, those dealerships reached out to the Permaplate rep, this awesome, amazing rep named Regina, who I've come to know now for a little while. And man, like out of this world, amazing representative for them, and of course now for XPEL. And so Regina went into the dealership, had a very straightforward conversation with them, and said, "Look, thank you so much for contacting me. I really appreciate it. However, I'm also under the impression that you're already doing work with Joel at Charleston Window Films, that you guys have been for about a month now. And so because of that, I will not interfere with something that's within our own realm already." And so she actually told the GM, "I'm sorry, but I won't even bid on this. Like, this is not something that we do. This is the way XPEL runs things. And we hope that you can appreciate it." Now, if Joel gets to a position where he doesn't want it anymore, if Joel gets to a position where he feels he can't handle anymore, if Joel gets to a position where, things are unfortunately falling out of his control, then Joel knows to reach out to me and reach out to Regina, who, by the way, Regina went and had a face-to-face with Joel and let him know what's going on and brought him fully up to speed and made him aware of it and just said to Joel, "Look, if it's getting to be too much or whatever the case may be, then obviously reach out to us, and we as XPEL will gladly step in and we'll do what we can to take over." So going back to that independent that does dealership services, we have a number of accounts that do nothing but dealer services, nothing but. And they had a couple of them and reached out to me right away when they heard about the acquisition. And they're like, "Hey, so how does this affect me?" And I go, "Man, like, in a way that's so beneficial, it's incredible, because now that we will be dictating to them they can't go after your accounts. But at the same time, please be mindful that now XPEL has got some accounts through the merger, and that we're asking to respect that in as well. And it's already, like, I don't know, in just the last 3 months, I've been involved in no less than a half a dozen of these situations where either we were looking after them or somebody else was. And it's like, hey guys, we're on the same team now, and let's make sure that we're getting that message across. And that's what's happened. And so I know for a fact that I could get 6, 7 people on this call right now with us to say, yeah, this is what Chris is describing is exactly what's happened to a T. And this acquisition was incredibly beneficial for us because before we were losing a customer or two here and there to the Permaplate guys using that other brand. And now that it's with XPEL, that won't happen anymore.
That's a beautiful thing. I mean, you, like you said, you took probably the biggest target off of somebody who's servicing a dealer's back, because they're no longer potentially being targeted by Permaplate, which is now XPEL, which just means, you're more protected as a dealer if you're servicing those wholesale accounts. And also, it kind of adds value, I would say, in essence, to being an XPEL dealer, because that the ecosystem, that demand only has increased, and you're part of that, like locked into you know your locations.
Yeah, and to go along with, look, I won't say the name of the account because I'd have to ask him permission first. But he reached out to me today, a very large dealership services account. They really don't do much, if any, retail. I mean, maybe it's a couple cars here and there, but trust me when I say at least 99% of their business is dealership services. And he's got 4 dealerships that he's thinking about bringing on the hook in a specific area. And he reached out to me and he said, look, like, I might need your help with installers because I don't have a presence there yet. And right away, I'm like, oh, I think I'm going to have you covered because I've got 200 plus installers through the Permaplate merger. They're now all XPEL. And if we feel that we can free one of them up or 2 of them up to help you out while you find installers for yourself, or whatever the case may be, or maybe we provide the labor component while you're providing the part component. There's so many different ways of skinning this cat now that we would not have had available to us before. And there's been a number of shops that have reached out to us where they knew that there was the previous Permaplate individuals, now of course XPEL, saying, hey, I'm down a guy or two because of COVID, or I'm down a guy or two because of holidays, or I'm down. Is there any chance that you can? And we're like, hey, let's look into it. And we've been able to make that happen. And that's something we couldn't do before. So again, I know for a fact that's amazing. Now, of course, there's also the business side, right, of the merger.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was a large merger. It was a $30 million merger, and that's a lot of money. But the fact of the matter, it was an all cash merger, and people wonder, well, why is that beneficial to them? Well, it's immensely beneficial to you because one of the things that shareholders especially don't like is seeing cash sitting in the bank. If the cash is sitting in the bank, it means it's not being used to develop or further the business. Shareholders want to see obviously some cash reserves in the bank, yes, but they really want to see profits being utilized to invest back into the company. That is the most important thing. When I talk to so many newer business operators, right, yourself included, when you first started, you poured all your all your profits back into the industry and back into your business to make it bigger and better, and to develop to deliver more content, to deliver a better experience, but also because ultimately you want to grow that company. Well, XPEL has a necessity to do that. It's not an option. Not that we would change it anyways, but the acquisition was cash burning a hole in the pocket, not being used for anything beneficial. And so the merger was very sensible. It really helped out, obviously, with valuation. Stock goes up, profits go up, value goes up. Well, guess what? That means more and more money poured into more R&D, more money poured into more marketing, more money poured into more DAP. I mean, DAP 11 is already insanely better than it ever was before. But the stuff that's coming down the pipeline that I wish I could tell you about, and obviously I can't. There's some things I do have to keep secret, will blow everybody's mind. There's stuff that's already in there. I mean, most people don't know all the details that are within DAP right now. They think it's the best design app on the planet, but it's so much more than that, and it's going to be so much more. It's going to be within a year or so. I would say it'll be 10 times more operationally beneficial to a shop than it is right now. But again, that money has to come from somewhere, right? And
Hmm.
so that's. I think there's a lag. I apologize.
It's not your fault. It's well, I don't know where it's from, but I'm going to take responsibility. There is a lag. Um, that's that's a very very good point because we're as an industry we're aligned. Like dealers who buy film from XPEL. In essence, like of course you want the best price as a dealer and so on for your film, but you do want XPEL to make money. You want them to grow. You want them to make mergers. You want them to be the healthiest company that they can be because that ultimately like is the company you do business with. So like what you're saying as far as how this just benefits, like you said, it goes into DAP, it goes into marketing. I'm sure it's going to go into distribution and more economies of scale when it comes to product. And you said more development in the product. Like that all, you know, comes down to you as a dealer, like the dealers out there that are an XPEL dealer. And even if you're not an XPEL dealer, it might be a tougher one to a little bit tougher to stomach, but it still benefits you because you're part of the industry and it leads innovation. And one company doing something innovative does push another four to do something innovative. And one of those might even do something and take a leapfrog in front of the first innovative one. And they wouldn't have if it wasn't innovation. And that's the whole point of a healthy industry. And I don't know that we've ever been in a healthier industry. And I'm glad, you're able to come on here and make this stuff clear. There are a couple of funny comments, Marco being one of them, and he had said how not funny, but I think accurate. He said people need to think and read out loud what they are going to post on social media before they send the message to the universe. And I think like that's true. And I think it should be especially true when you're talking amongst your peers and you're talking amongst like your industry and where you do business and you're affecting other people's businesses potentially and perceptions. And I feel like you do, like everybody has a responsibility to not necessarily just shout off at the mouth if they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, look, that online thing, as we've talked about a few times, can be quite contentious, right? There's been times where I've seen people posting about another brand, and they're like, "This is the greatest brand I've ever used. I've used everything under the sun. I'm so glad that I went this way. This is the best thing ever. Everything else, and like this brand, and like XPEL sucks." And then I'm like, man, like I wish that I could be as aggressive as I'd like to be. What I could do is I could go into NetSuite. I could pull out the conversation that you and I had yesterday with you begging me to let you into XPEL and saying that I know XPEL is the greatest. I don't want to go with any other brand. This is the only brand I want to go with, which is XPEL. I want the access to the patterns. I want the access to the marketing. I want access to the film. And because we couldn't bring you on board, and it was not because we didn't want to, it's just because we had some agreement, if you will, with another shop maybe that's too close, or because you didn't want to go exclusive with us, which was I can completely understand.
Hmm.
Then we chose to do business with each other. But like you sitting there saying something negative, and I don't care if it's about XPEL, Suntech, Lumar, Steck, 3M. It doesn't matter who it is. You're burning bridges. It's getting noticed. There may be a time, like you said, where somebody leapfrogs heavily above somebody else, and now you're like, wow, what's best for my business is to switch to that brand instead. And if you've pissed them off, you've been blacklisted by them in essence. What have you gained, right? And you make yourself look petty. So I definitely agree with Marco on that point. It's well taken.
You gotta, you always should say what it is and speak your mind and be honest and transparent, but not say things that are not real or you don't know about. And because those are the things that, like you said, can make you look petty. And even an instance like, and this is just look, it's a wise, I think it's a wise business move. It's just a wise like social move to not go around burning bridges for no reason, just for fun that day on Facebook, because even somebody you burn a bridge with could end up working for a different company in the future, and you come across them that way or through somebody or a friend of a friend. Like, you don't know. And the point is not, again, it's not to be fake just in case. It's just don't be a schmuck just for no reason, you know?
Yeah. I mean, going, again, like there's always reasons for a company to do the things that they're doing. And I'm talking about from the manufacturer's level, right?
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, you've got to respect that multiple people were almost always involved in every decision, and they came to a decision, and whatever that decision is should be just understood and respected, that made the most sense for
Yeah.
them along with their clientele. They didn't make nobody, not Eastman, not 3M, not XPEL makes a decision thinking this is only going to be good for us and it's going to suck for our clients, right?
Right.
It's always thought from those top three brands as how can this benefit everybody involved as much as humanly possible. Look, going back to the investment money, right? I'll let the cat out of the bag on something. And there's a few people that know. Mike Burke, of course, definitely knows this, along with a few others. But most people don't know that we've invested a heavy amount of money into putting an East Coast distribution center together. We are actually opening up a Charlotte distribution center shortly. We were supposed to be open, actually, to be candid with you, by this summer. But unfortunately, Duke Power couldn't get the power transformers in. They were on back order, or whatever you want to call it, for a long time due to all the other, situations that are happening worldwide with COVID and what have you. And we got that up and going. The shelving's up and going. We've already hired the manager to run the whole operation. Has already been hired. He's already been relocated from where he was living to Charlotte. He's already living there now. The only thing we're waiting on is the fire marshal of all people to sign off. The fire marshal seems to be feeling that maybe we need a more a more adequate sprinkler system than what we have. Although what we have is better than what we have even in San Antonio, which of course is a lot hotter year round, historically speaking, in a much larger operation. So, anyways, but like there's an example, right? That this is something that people don't know, But this acquisition, that I keep using the word acquisition, I'm just not supposed to. I'm so sorry, guys. I should keep referring to it as a merger, as it's properly called. Um, Obviously would contribute to that, and we've got a lot more mergers that are coming up, a lot more, and super exciting stuff, and we're not the only ones that are doing it. It's no secret that Eastman made an acquisition just about a week ago that they announced it. I don't know that it's finished yet. From the article I read, it hasn't completed yet, but Premium Shield, right? I mean, hey, good on them. Like that's a great company. The Dominicos are awesome people. I've never met Jamie Warner in person, but I know he's an amazing sales manager. I've heard nothing but great things about him. I know he's only spoken positively of me in the past with other individuals who've said, hey, Jamie was in here and he was talking about you in a very positive way. I mean, that was a very, very smart acquisition on Eastman's part. I commend them on that one. It was good. It was good on them.
Have you seen any acquisitions change hands, like amongst, or mergers rather, acquisitions in this case, uh, between dealers, dealer to dealer? Not to speak on anyone specific, but I'm just saying, do
Yeah.
you see them change hand? Is there anything that stands out? And there's a little delay on the video, so that's why I'm playing blindly on the audio. Um, is there anything that you would recommend that you've seen that if a dealer's out there and they're saying, hey, I might want to sell my company in the next 2, 5, maybe even 10 years, that could point them in the right direction of anything they should start doing now, anything that makes an attractive film like acquisition over an unattractive one, anything you've seen?
Yeah. Yeah, I can come up with a few. First and foremost is, look, it's no secret that a lot of people do cash deals, right? And I'm not saying that they're not reporting their cash to the government. Okay, like I don't even want to get into like,
They're
are they
not. If
going?
they're
Are
not,
they going?
they're not. If they're doing cash deals, they're not reporting anything. So they keep going.
Well, you cash and still report it. It doesn't
You
mean that you
could,
can't take cash and put it on the books.
but you wouldn't give them a
But what I'm
deal.
saying, but what I am saying is that those individuals that are out there that are doing cash deals and not putting them on the books, that I would strongly recommend getting away from right away. Yes, it might look beneficial in the beginning because you're feeling like I've somehow avoided some taxation on this money and I can put that money in the pocket and I can use it. But the reality is it definitely diminishes the value of your company should you ever wish to sell it immensely. You cannot prove that cash money. As a matter of fact, if anything, it says a lot to your character to some people. Some people think of individuals who are trying to cheat the government, obviously in a negative light.
Mm-hmm.
And so they may not even want to continue the conversation about acquisition if that's how they feel that you've been operating. And who have you been operating with? Who's your clientele? Are these guys just a bunch of drug dealers that are trying to stay off the beaten path and not get noticed, and that's why they're coming to you? Like, again, it can have negative implications. And again, I'm not saying I'm not trying to point out how a person earns a living or doesn't earn their living is of consequence to me personally. I'm just saying it's all about how it can look. Number two is to make sure that you've done a great job in co-branding. And people go, what do you mean by that? And I go, look, you have your brand, but you also have the brand that's behind you or with you as a partner, which is that manufacturer, right? And Manny talked really well to that subject last week. And XPEL, I feel, has always done a good job with that as well. And so if you've got a major brand, you really need to make sure that you capitalize on that in all of your marketing. I feel that the companies that sit there and only talk about themselves are only resting on their own laurels when it comes to acquisition. And that's what I'm talking about. Just acquisition. It's not as attractive. Where if I can see that a company is co-branded with, hey, ABC Shop, and they've got great reviews and everything like that, but they're co-branded with 3M, or they're co-branded with an Eastman, or they're co-branded with an XPEL, I feel like there's a lot more clout and there's a lot more that I want to grab a hold of. There's a lot more meat on the bone, right? In that I feel like, hey, they're with a top brand, and there's a reason why that top brand is with them, right? And it is a dual situation. And so that's number two. Number three is to make sure that you've invested wisely in the operation itself. If you've got a shabby looking operation where the walls aren't finished and the floors aren't finished properly, or you haven't changed or removed your transfer glass and painted behind the walls and stuff like that for a while, and updated the look, from everything from your customer waiting area to your reception to the floors to the lifts to everything, like it's not a it's again, like if I walked into a dirty home, even if the home was amazing, I'm going to notice the dirt and I might not be so impressed and have a desire to go ahead with the purchase. And of course the last part is to determine ahead of time, what do you want to do afterwards? And I know that sounds funny, but a lot of people, they think that they want to do the get bought out, but they don't have a plan for after the buyout. And if you don't have a plan for after the buyout, well, what happens is when the buyout actually finally comes to fruition and it's getting closer, you get a lot of anxiety. And then these questions start popping in your head way too late. And then you might even be wishy-washy on the acquisition. And you might give that impression to the buyer. And then things can go south real quick. Look, our good friend Mike Burke, who we talk about obviously on many of our podcasts, he recently did an acquisition of a really successful operation in the Dallas Fort Worth area, and he's already done an insane amount of change on it. Like the place I thought it was good looking before. I actually went and saw it before he changed it over, but now it's stunning. And the numbers that it was doing before were impressive, but the numbers it's doing now already, and just I don't know. I think Mike's only owned it for about 3 months now or so. It's for sure at least double its wholesale purchases in just that 3 month operational time. So you think about what was the value, what is the value today already with just say 3 months of a Mike Burke taking it over versus what it was 3 months ago when he acquired it. Well, I can tell you it's gone up an incredible sum. And could that sum have been accomplished by the previous people? Yeah, it could have been and it should have been. And they had left out some of those important details that I highlighted earlier, or maybe thought that it was already at a good enough level without really diving into it a little harder, if that makes sense. And it's always hard to do that, right? I think every one of us, when we've had our own shop, looks at our own shop with a lot of admiration, if you will, and pride, because we put our blood, sweat, and tears into this, and we took it from nothing to what it is.
Yeah.
but could it be better? Could it be something more than it is? It probably always can be. And to just sit there and assume that it's good enough is not the right attitude, especially if you're thinking about selling out later on.
And that's where I think social media helps, and obviously like the dealer network you're a part of helps, because you're able to see what you thought was fast is not fast to somebody else, or you thought was busy is not busy to somebody else, or you thought, you're able to kind of see. And I feel like as you realize like what could be done, it's, it boosts you to be able to do it yourself, you know. Like
Yeah,
a Mike Burke can go into that shop and say, "Hey, we can do X, Y, Z," and 3 months later double it. Whereas, like you said, if you were in that shop for the last 15 years, you might think, "Well, we've kind of, we've captured our area."
yeah, and again, like I went to that shop. I went down to Dallas. I can't even remember what the reason was, and he had said, "Hey, do me a favor while you're there. Why don't you slide by and stop in and see the shop?" And I'm like, "Yeah, great." And I went to the shop, and I was genuinely impressed. I was genuinely impressed by the person who was managing it at the time. Obviously, the installers, the reception area, the customer waiting area. They had this really cool like bench out front that's like a pickup truck, like the tailgate of the pickup truck where the tailgate folds down from the wall and that's what becomes the seat, and lights in it and everything. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. Like, yeah. And I was and the person who was managing the shop at the time had said, "Listen, would you mind if I went through my sales process with you?" And I said, "No, not at all. Like, that's my forte. That's my background. Fly at it." And so they did, and I straight up told them, like, there's only maybe a couple little things that I would maybe want to add or change, and I went through them and I said why, and they said, and they felt the feedback was very valuable, and I called Mike afterwards and I said, "Mike, like the shop's awesome. Like I think you've done a great job in your acquisition, and I think that you're going to get your money back out of it within a reasonable period of time." And he's like, "No, I'm going to get it out like much faster than that." And he was like, "This is my goal. This is what I'm going to do with it." And I'm like, "Wow, like you're going to rip apart what looks like it's already solid now?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Yeah, I shouldn't have expected anything less than that from you." And he did it. And boom, like I've seen the numbers myself personally, and I'm just like, obviously in marvel of the man and what he managed to accomplish in that period of time. And so there's a really good example of a way that's happened. And there's been other acquisitions that I've seen too, and a lot of them have been very, very impressive.
What do you think the main draw is? If you were speculating, if somebody has a shop, they have two shops, they've obviously done it, they're successful. That's why they have the money to be able to purchase another shop. What do you think that draw is typically? What's the attraction versus taking that money and building it? Is it just a matter of, hey, I can save the time, this will take years and some unknown, I can purchase it right now with this money? Is that just basically a time saver?
I think it's a combination of things. I mean, number one, we all know that the vast majority, if not every single shop owner, are typically a type A personality, right? You have obviously those extreme artists as well, and they've sort of become like a hybrid personality. But that type A personality is always wanting to conquer more, and it's never going to change. And so, yes, you can conquer more by sometimes being bigger than you already are, but I think that by diversifying and acquiring more operations is probably going to be a better way of doing it if you have all the other pieces of the puzzle in place, and that's not easy, right? Because you have to be able to step away from the existing shop first, 100% step away from the existing shop first before
Mm-hmm.
you can even consider the idea of grabbing a second operation or a third operation. And sometimes what happens is you move into a second operation by promoting somebody within to run the existing operation, and you have these high hopes that they can do it. They've given you this clear indication that they feel they can do it, and yet the operation is not nearly as successful as it was when you were there yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a hard thing to admit to both individuals that made that decision. So maybe they need to step back and think about that. So I always recommend that make sure that go away for a month or two. I know it's crazy, but literally do it. Like literally
Mm-hmm.
step out of the shop for a month or two. Those people running it, do not be interacting with them on a daily level, and confirm that they were accurate and correct, and that they can in fact do that job with you and for you, right? Now, if that's the case, now let's go look at acquisition. And I can tell you from personal experience that trying to build something from scratch, even when you have a good name behind it and a successful co-branding, isn't easy. As a matter of fact, it's much more difficult than to go out and acquire something that already is operational. But again, it's kind of like going back to that question, like when an installer comes to you that no longer works for somebody and now is available. When a person's looking to sell the shop, what is the reason, right? And I think 99 out of 100 times they're going to tell you that they're burnt out. If you can confirm that they're burnt out, and that's hard to confirm, but if you can confirm that that's the reason, great. Then that is an acquisition that makes a lot of sense. But if the spider sense is going off, they're not telling me everything. They're young. They haven't been in the business that long. Whatever. I'm watching them. They're not working 80-hour weeks and burning the midnight candle on both ends. You might want to wonder if it's really because they're burnt out or because there's some other negative underlying factor that you cannot get a hold of and confirm. Be careful. Be careful. But I like the idea of acquisition more than the idea of simple expansion. But if I can't find that right person to take over the existing operation, then expansion is another is another awesome thing still to consider. Look, I went out to I think he's been on the show, right? Kyle at Clearby Indy.
Mhm.
I went out to his shop a couple of times, and I see what his shop has become versus what it was originally. It's this massive operation. I know I've been Donick at Eurotech, right? I mean, like, again, insanely huge operation. I look at Brett and Tiffany at All American Paint Protection, massive operation. I don't know that they really want to move into having another shop, either of those three operators. And obviously in Brett's case, it's Brett and Tiffany. I want to be clear about that, not leave Tiffany out of this. But I think that their idea of just expansion is better, because they like being hands-on operators to really be interacting with the clients, to really be interacting with the staff, and to always be, with their finger directly on the pulse, right? Kyle, again, same kind of individual. Would I recommend Kyle to go out and grab a second and third shop, even though, of course, he's got the funds to do it, or Donick or Brett and Tiffany? They have all of those guys have the funds to do it, no problem. But would it be smart? Like, look at Eddie from Detailing Dynamics, right? Arguably the most famous shop maybe in the world, along with Protective Film Solutions. Uh, you know, they have no desire to acquire another operation. They love what they've got going on. They went from one small building to a large building to two large buildings to now they've got three large buildings, but they're all clustered with each other. And I can see them continuing to do the same thing, where moving on to a second operation I don't think would be beneficial for those guys.
If you had a dealer that came to, or maybe you're visiting and they said, "Hey, Chris, I'm thinking about selling my shop. How much do you think it's worth?" What do you say back?
Yeah, so I always tell them, look, there's two answers to that question, right? There's what it's worth to an investor, right? Whether it's a fellow shop owner or somebody that's a fund of some kind that's doing an acquisition. That value is almost always going to be lower than what you're going to want for the business. Part of it, of course, is because you are so personally invested into your own business. The second reason is because you need to be considerate of something, and that is what I talked about earlier, and that is, what are you going to do afterwards? If the idea is that I'm going to take a chunk of money out of it and I'm going to go back into another industry, then fine. Then the value of that business doesn't need to be as high. However, what if the intention was to take the money and retire? Well, then obviously the business needs to have the value behind it to provide that retirement operation or opportunity, right? Yeah, maybe you've squirreled away $2 million, but what if you've decided you need 10 million in the bank, liquid cash, in order to truly retire and feel like for the rest of my life I will be fine along with my wife and children, right? Well, that means that automatically your business needs to have a valuation of 8 million. It doesn't mean it's legitimately worth it, but that's what it needs to be worth in order for you to sell it. So it's a hard answer because again, I think that the only correct way to look at it is first and foremost, what am I doing after, right? I've got clients that came out of other industries. I've got clients that were bankers. I've got clients that were in medical field. I got clients that are amazing programmers. I got lots of clients that were making well over $250,000 a year at the job that they had before. If their idea is, man, I got into this, I did my run at it, I liked it, a lot. Now I don't like it so much anymore. I don't want to deal with the clients anymore. I don't want to deal with the COVID situation anymore. I don't want to deal with whatever the unknowns. Maybe I want to sell it. Okay. Are you going to go back in the industry? Yeah, as a matter of fact, I already talked to the people I used to work with before, and they've said, hey, we can come back anytime you want. Your job's available again. We'll pay you this much money. Great. Then you have an exit strategy right now that's valuable for you, and you don't need to recover as much funds out of it. And so then they're like, well, then what is the value? And I'm like, well, it comes down to, like, my business mentor would say to me, look, obviously, number of years in business plays a major effect in value. Growth plays a major effect in value. Obviously, total income that the business plays is a value, and of course sales. And some guys will try and go, well, it's a multiple of sales. Well, for the investor, it's usually a multiple of earnings. I know that we want to be a multiple of sales, but quite often the investor is looking as a multiple of earnings. And if so, the most casual, the most, not casual, careful investor is going to tell you it's, anywhere between 1 and 3 times earnings, right? Well, most shop owners would go, screw you. Like, there's no way I'm selling it for that little amount of money then,
Right.
because I'm making that much a year off of it. And I'm like, you're right. Don't sell it. It's ludicrous. But, if you can get with a single shop operation, if you can get between 5 and 7 times earnings, and I mean real earnings, right? We're not talking, I mean, all money on the books. Then and you're seeing constant growth, a 30% growth year over year, and again, that good co-branding, yeah, you might get a 7 times earnings situation happening, and that would be a great value. Now, if you have 2 and 3 and 5 and 10 and 15 stores,
Right.
then that valuation changes dramatically.
Right. The video still talking, but you paused. I'm just making sure.
Yeah,
Um,
sorry.
any
I start saying end of sentence
end
pretty
of
quick.
sentence, over and out or over. Yeah, and I mean, part
Yeah,
of I would imagine why the value goes up significantly when you have more than one location is, the ability to show that your business operates without you in it, and it's able to be replicated. If you can have five, you could have 10. If you can have 10, you can have 100. But when there's just one, and especially, I was surprised that you said you found it like okay, or even like a benefit if somebody says I'm burnt out. And I see why after you explained it. Like, if they're burnt out, it means it's a healthy business. They're just tired, but it's a great business. You just have to put the right people in there. My first thought was, if they're so burned out, the whole business probably is like they're touching everything. Probably they might have a couple extra staff, but probably nothing happens without them. In my mind, which is not necessarily the case. And it sounded like to me, I think like you pull the owner out, what do you have left as a business? To me, that's probably at the end of the day what people are going to be looking at, regardless if they're buying a business. Is, hey, if I pull the owner out because he's the one selling it, unless I keep the owner with the acquisition or merger, what's left over? And like you said, years of being there, your staff, if you have multiple locations, those play a role. And I'm curious, I just want to verify when you said the years in business, um, that I would imagine you're saying the longer in business, the more value there is. But there could
yeah.
be, if there was enough growth, kind of the reverse effect. Yeah, like almost like you don't want to be in the middle. You don't want to be average. But if you're new and you're having a lot of growth, you could be valuable if you're existing. But if you're kind of in the middle, is that a fair statement? Or is it just really as long as there's growth? There's just got to be growth.
Yeah, look, growth is obviously incredibly important, but I mean, again, dealing from an investor standpoint, right? To see a business that's been operational for 15 or 20 years and has weathered obviously some very different financial environments, with economies and stuff like that. It shows that there's some legs behind it, that you can feel comfortable that if if the owner did step away, there's still that the business is going to fail. Sometimes when you're seeing such insane growth like you had, and I know you had that in such a short period of time, the worry from an investor standpoint might be that all that growth is completely tied into the people that are there, and they're not going to be there any longer, right? And that's why sometimes with acquisition, you have this like deal with the person that they're going to stay on board for a certain time. And quite often it's a 12-month period. And it's so that you can A, be trained by them in depth, and B, so that the people will start to become familiar with two faces rather than one, and it makes that acquisition more palatable. But when you see companies that skyrocket from 0 to 1 million in a year or two, you have to wonder if it's sustainable, and you have to wonder what made that happen. Now, if I saw a company that had been around, like you said, in the middle, maybe 5-6 years, but they've had very little growth in that time frame, yeah, I'm probably not that interested in it unless I can really determine that they have a really good infrastructure, really good staff, but that they were the wrong people to run it. And that happens, right? We do meet those people where they were great installers, and they thought, wow, the owner of this operation is making crazy money, which of course is never the truth. Um, but they think that they're making gobs and gobs of money, and that they should be able to go out and do the same thing. And being a great installer, or even just an okay installer, to being an owner operator is they don't correlate. Now, I'm not saying you can't become a great owner operator. I'm just saying that I can tell you that I've seen, unfortunately, a lot of individuals that, in my personal opinion, perhaps shouldn't have stepped into that role and taken that on, and in turn, should have probably stayed as a lead tech or something like that, making phenomenal income without all the headaches that they're currently dealing with. Over.
Yeah, over. That's something that I think, like you said, you touched on. It's very important because when you're stepping into that realm, you go from let's say working somewhere, you're used to a certain amount of money. Now you open your own business, you start growing. The revenue number is impressive. Like you start doing more revenue and you're focused on revenue. But really, like I feel like the equal focus has to be on profit as well. Now, even if you're going to reinvest that profit, it's still profit that wasn't necessary to operate your business potentially, and you chose to reinvest it. But if your revenue is going up, your business is getting bigger, but you're bringing in less money for yourself, and there's no money being saved for the company. I feel like it can be a little bit of a trap to focus on revenue. And like you said earlier, as far as your value goes, I mean, if you have a company that does $1 million in sales and profits 350,000 of that, or you have $1 million in sale and profit 50,000 of that, you have the same sales, but you couldn't expect somebody purchasing it to pay the same amount. So a multiple off of revenue just it couldn't it just it can't be a determining factor. Unfortunately, I don't think with anybody who's going to put up any real money, frankly, in window tint to just go off of revenue. It's
Yeah,
got to be about profit.
yeah. I mean, again, I know that I have seen acquisition based off of revenue, but again, it was because the companies were able to determine that there was excess expenditures in areas where they didn't need it. They would be able to amalgamate some staff, obviously let some staff go,
Right. Hidden
things like
profit.
that, where maybe I could see $1 million in revenue, but I see 200,000 and $50,000 in profit, but I could see where I could get 200 more grand in profit out of it with just a few changes that the other operation doesn't have available to them. That's where it would make sense. But ultimately, most investors are looking to work off of the bottom line revenue. Yeah.
Very interesting. It's great that there's action in the window film industry. That everybody's still doing well. We're a year and a half into COVID, and companies are moving, supplies are moving down the chain, people are selling more than ever. The interest in automobiles and protecting the like cars is just like, people are spending. I feel like people are probably spending double on a new car purchase than they were 5 years ago. Like between, not saying cars went up in price double, but I just mean like it seems like everything's going well. All cars are going up. People like, like Ram TRXs. That's $100,000 truck, and like you just fly off the shelves. And then what do you want when you spend $100,000 or $80,000 on a vehicle? You want to protect it. You want to be comfortable in it, and it's a great time to be in this industry.
Yeah, it's like everybody, when COVID first started happening, there was all of us internally were wondering how's this going to affect us, and that's why our CEO Ryan Pape at that time was like, look, we're all acquisition is off right now. There's going to be no mergers for a while. We're going to stockpile the money and make sure that we can keep everybody gainfully employed at 100% of their work of their working hours, and it was an amazing move that he did. And then, then of course, a couple months later, things really started to show us that that wasn't the case, and that sky wasn't falling. And wow, sales took off, and we had a record year, and we're having an absolute record year again this year. We had a record second quarter. I think we're on pace to have a record third quarter. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure we are. And what's interesting to me is that I of course travel a lot, and I see a lot of dealerships, showrooms, and lots, and the lots look fairly empty in comparison to normal. As a matter of fact, a lot of the vehicles I do have are just strictly used cars. But I talk to clients all day, every day, from all around the country, and everybody is still moving upwards in their sales and in their year over year, compared to what they were doing last year same month. They're still moving drastically upwards. And like you said, I know for a fact that the average car price just in the last 12 months has gone up, and it's predominantly because the stores are, first of all, not discounting because they don't need to. Second of all, the manufacturers do not have any incentives because, again, they don't need to. And third, the dealerships are, and they're preloading the vehicles with extras that the customer can genuinely benefit from. I get it, but again, if the client wants a car, they're going to do it. Look, you just saw Ida, right? That just blew through the Northeast. I was reading that there might be upwards of 1.25 million vehicles that are being written off from the floods. Well, that's another million plus cars are going to be needed for the environment that don't exist, as far as I know, collectively speaking around the US. So I think that when you're spending top dollar for your car, whether it's a base car that's only 20 grand or it's a luxury exotic car that's a 250, whatever, I think that your intention at this point is, hey, I'm going to hold on to this car longer than I'm used to. I'm spending more money than I'm used to, and I'm not getting a discount like I'm used to. And so maybe all of that is playing a part of, let me do more to this vehicle. Let me personalize it more with regards to window films. Let me be more protective with the paint protection film and ceramic coatings and things of that nature. I can only hypothesize that all of that is playing a part of it. And all I know is that, if once in like 1 in 100 stores I'll talk to is like, well, Chris, my numbers are down right now because of COVID. No, no, it's not. It's not because of COVID, because the other 99 are telling me the exact opposite right now, and they're all around you in some capacity. So it's not that. It's 100% you, or it's you lying to me. It's one or the other. It's that you've cheated on me and you've gone with another brand and you don't feel manly enough to come out and tell me about it, and that's usually what my suspicion is, to be candid with you, or it's that you're doing something really wrong with your business, because everybody else has gone way up, way up.
Yeah. So dealer meetings coming up this year. There'll be a dealer XPEL dealer conference in March. Yeah, San Antonio,
Actually, in February, yeah.
February.
The early special is on right now. Do keep in mind, some people have asked me this question privately. They ask if they can attend if they're not XPEL. The answer is no. I'm sorry, guys, but we reserve the dealer conference for the XPEL clientele. It's an unbelievable time. Everybody that attends conference will tell you that they will never miss another conference after that. There is a lot that they gain from conference. One of the things that I'm always proud about is the fact that it's not 2 days of Ryan Pape standing up on a stage talking about how awesome XPEL is. And instead, what he might do is he might stand up on stage for an hour and a half, and tell you about, hey, this is how well the company's done in the past, but this is the things that he feels are important to us coming up with the future. And he sort of lets the cat out of the bag with a few obviously important details. But then I always bring up marketing. which is amazing because, of course, marketing will talk about what they have in mind for the company as a whole, which, of course, was beneficial because we're all co-branding, like I talked about earlier. And then they always bring in a guest speaker. And, you know, the guest speaker is not XPEL. They don't work for XPEL. They have something of their own, some in some way or capacity. And what they'll do is they will talk to you about how to improve your business. And so I'm really excited for this year's guest speaker. This year's guest speaker has his own television show called Gas Monkey. His name is Richard Rawlings.
Mm-hmm.
I'm outrageously excited to meet him. I've been watching his show since it first came on. And I know that he's going to be amazing. I got to listen to a 5 minute cut down version of some guest speaking that he'd done at another event, and I was blown away by it. And I know that our clients are going to really resonate with him, right? Guy that went from, running a little shop of his own with just him and one other person to now obviously running quite an empire. I think that, a lot of his story is going to correlate with a lot of our own owner operators. But it goes beyond that. We have competitions. We have breakout sessions. This year's competitions, man, our grand prize cash, and I'm talking $100 bills, is $10,000 to the paint protection film, to the auto window tint, and to the flat glass division. Second place, if I remember correctly, I think is $25 cash, and I think third place is a grand cash. And if I'm not mistaken, and please forgive me, because we didn't have conference last year, unfortunately due to COVID, but if I'm not mistaken, not only is it 10 grand cash to the winner, but there's also $25 in free product to the winning operation as well. So maybe the winning operation, let's say it's Sunstopper as well. Let's say Mike Burke's got one of his installers there, and his installer happens to win the flat glass division or window tint or paper, whatever it is. The Sunstoppers would also get $2,500 in free product to go along with it. But we also have breakout sessions, right? And I don't know if this is done yet, so I'm hoping it is, because otherwise I'm going to get in trouble from Mr. Rob Besner, who's a vice president and in charge of marketing. But I believe we're bringing back Jared Dines again, and I hope I didn't butcher Jared's last name. So Jared, my apologies. But Jared is the guy that motivated myself, and more importantly, motivated Mike Burke to come up with the idea of doing the Guinness World Record event. So a few years ago, we were at a dealer conference, and Jared Dines was one of the guest speakers. And he had talked about how he had done this world record. He actually did it twice event, but his specialty is social media, and the guy is unbelievable. When people reach out to me and they say, hey, look, like, do you guys have an in-house social media specialist that I can lock onto? Well, we can give you some guidance, yes, but we cannot run your individual pages for you. We don't have a paid for program like that, but I always recommend Jared for that. So I'm fairly confident that he's back again this year, but we will have advanced PPF, we'll have advanced tint, we'll probably have security attachment like we have in the past, or a security film. We'll have things like, hey, how to keep your staff motivated, how to manage your bottom line, how to how to invest wisely within yourself, things like that. And these breakout sessions are awesome. Usually there'll be a rep from XPEL like myself mediating the room, but it's usually us drawing upon our clients that have had immense success within those fields, that we ask them to sort of spearhead the topic for us. We did dealership development was a big one, and Willis Auto Campus, which is a really cool operation up in Des Moines, Iowa. We had one of their top level individuals come in, and they ran the whole dealership development thing. So here was a dealership telling you how to get into dealerships as independent if you wanted to, and give you some guidance. And I was just like, wow, that's so cool. Like, it's a dealership that doesn't ever want to use third party, that's actually helping you understand how to get in as a third party into it. So, I mean, and of course, you already know that the XPEL brotherhood is very cliche, but very real and accurate. And you have all these guys that are normally competitors that would normally, and I think in a lot of other industries, maybe even with other brands, not get along so well with each other. They get along infamously with each other, and they're breaking bread with each other, and they're having a good time. And COVID really messed that up for us last year. Ryan was really adamant that he wanted to have dealer conference come hell or high water, but the hotel turned around with, like, I don't know, a couple months left to go and said, we will only allow you to run 50% occupancy. And not only that, but you can't do the welcome night where we normally would sit down at the bar and have a drink or 20 on each other. And you guys would have to have all your meals seated at the position that you're in the conference room, and you'd have to be socially distanced from anybody else within the groups. I mean, it was just like, wow, like there's no way we could carry that off. So unfortunately, we had to cancel that. I think the one that everybody's wondering right now is SEMA, right? Like,
Yeah.
we're hearing that SEMA is a go, but there's a lot of people that are hypothesizing that SEMA is going to get canceled. And if it doesn't get canceled, are they going to require masks? Are they going to require vaccination? I don't know. I'm hoping, of course, that SEMA happens, because I think the SEMA is incredibly valuable to especially speak to our clients. But we'll see. But dealer conference, yeah, early bird is already up and live, guys. So if you guys are looking to save money, which I always say is a smart thing to do within any business, yes, go ahead and click on. But do keep in mind that we will verify that you are in fact an authorized XPEL client.
I feel there's tremendous value. If you're an XPEL dealer and you have the means to make it there, I think like tremendous value, tremendous. Like that goes for anybody. Like if your manufacturer has a meeting, I think you should go every single time if you possibly can. And I think it says something that you have people reaching out that are not XPEL dealers who want to come to the meeting. I feel like you're going to have some sort of like extra long meeting in the future that includes a day or two for non-XPEL dealers, which doesn't quite even make sense in a sense that other dealers want to come to it. I mean, it does make sense, but it really says something. It's
Yeah,
like
I don't know if are you getting crackly with the microphone on your end? Because I am on my, for some reason.
I'm getting crackly, the video's off, but I can still hear you well. I think we're okay.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, I know why some of the, like, I don't want to be rude or anything like that, but we've had competitors that have asked some of
Oh, like to go
their
to be like
clients
a spy?
an idea of like how we've, like, why is ours so unique? Why do we have the turnout we do? Why do people come back from it as jazzed as they are? And again, we're really good friends with most of our competitors. We have a lot of admiration and respect, especially for 3M and Eastman. Those two specifically are the ones that we really feel that they're the top three brands with us included. And but at the same point, they've got their own secret sauce, and so do we, and we want to keep some of it to ourselves. And I'm not saying that they're the companies that have asked some of their clients to attend. I apologize if it even suggested that. That's definitely not what I'm suggesting. I just know for a fact, because I've had some people reach out to me and tell me that straight to my face, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, of course, like dealers are
And
going
some
to
guys want to attend because they want to try and win money.
say that again because they want to rip off.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good.
Well, no, what I was want to attend because, of course, they want to try and, of course, win the competitions and win the money. But we would obviously want that to go to an XPEL client, especially if we're going to give away free product to go with it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it just says to, like again, like enthusiasm in the industry that exists right now. And even if it's like an XPEL event, you're not an XPEL dealer, there's a certain draw to just going there, learn, if you could, hypothetically, wanting to go there, see your peers and learn what you can learn and so on. So I just, obviously it doesn't make sense when it's an XPEL meeting to have non-XPEL dealers there, but it's a nod to the enthusiasm and, that exists right now in the industry, which again just points to such a healthy industry to be a part of.
Agreed. Agreed. And as you said, every manufacturer, top level manufacturer, tends to have some kind of get together, some kind of meeting. Look, I mean, it's public record. You guys can go in and look at our fiscal reports. We spent way over $500,000 on our dealer conference. Way over.
I printed out some numbers ahead of this just in case.
What's that?
Oh, I'm sorry. I said I printed out some numbers ahead of time. The videos, you'll see it in 30 seconds from now, but I have like a handful of papers of like the quarterly reports just so I could be up to date with any numbers in case you went in there. But it is interesting, and like you're saying, it is public information, and you can see how much revenue and expenses and so on. So like it's a good exercise in business, even if you're not going to do anything with the information. Just to I find it interesting, and you know.
Yeah, people are always shocked because look, dealer conference isn't free, right? There's an early bird special, which obviously saves you a lot of money,
Mm-hmm.
and but at the end of the day, um, what people are always surprised by is how much. And again, those that pour over our financials realize how much we spend over and above what our clients spend, and it's it's crazy. But I mean, dealer conference is unreal. Like I can't express it enough. Like it's the first dealer conference I went to, I was shocked because I honestly anticipated coming from corporate America before in a long while ago, of course. Um, the conferences were very different. It was all about us, and this is how great we are, and this is what we do, and this, and some of it wasn't even relevant, you know. And then to go to the first dealer conference with XPEL and hear a very different approach was mind-boggling and rewarding at the same time. And of course, getting to hang out with a lot of my friends in one spot is obviously something that comes with a lot of enjoyment.
Well, that's February, and it'll be right around the corner because time flies, and we're basically in October. So, like you said, if you haven't bought your tickets in your XPEL dealer, buy them now because they'll be cheaper now than if you buy them last minute.
Yeah.
And
Was the thing is, by the oh, go ahead, Eric.
no, no, you go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
You go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, I wanted to point something out. When we do these podcasts, there's a lot of people that are making comments and stuff and saying things like, "Hey, Chris," and like saying hello and stuff. Just so you guys know, again, I'm not on social media. I do have my profile, and so what I can do sometimes is I can sometimes click on it and like something. But if I even try and comment on it, because I deleted the app, it just doesn't work properly. I get about halfway through the sentence and then it stalls and it won't let me continue. So I did want to point out that I hope people weren't thinking that I was being rude and not responding to the remarks that are sometimes coming on that you can see that I can't.
Yeah, no, no worries. I'm glad you said that, but I haven't been. I've been reading the comments, but they haven't been on screen, and usually like it does go better, even if you could see the comments, to not be distracted, frankly. And I'll ask any questions that are important. But yeah, good pointing that out so nobody thinks that. And they do go fast, and sometimes just putting
Cool.
it out there, they don't even show on my screen, and I'll go back after and see comments that I didn't see. So I'll take that the moment to put the disclaimer out there that sometimes I miss them as well. Um, it's just how it goes. But anything that you wanted to discuss that we didn't touch on yet?
No, I mean, this is just really exciting times for all of us. XPEL. If we're just going to touch on just XPEL specifically, our stock is amazing. Our product quantity on hand is unbelievable. I was down in Texas 5 weeks ago. We are building an insane man. So 3 years ago, 2018, yeah, was with Mike Burke, and I took him on a tour of our new facility, right? And it had our clean room in it and everything. And I if I remember correctly, it was something like 50,000 square feet, facility. And this is now separate from where we used to be because we used to have our warehouse and our head office and everything located together. And then we went and built out this massive warehouse facility that Carlos Alvarez is in charge of. And it was very impressive, like genuinely really impressive. And we had really started to get started. I mean, we were really starting to get, into tint and stuff like that at that point. We'd already been selling it for quite, a few years now. But I mean, paint protection film occupied, I don't know, in terms of film product, at least 90% of the shelf space. And my boss, Mike Mail, was there and he said, mark my words, within 2 years, we're going to outgrow this space. And it's going to be because of window films. Our window film sales are going to surpass our paint protection film sales by square footage, and we're going to need more shelf space for that. Well, So I was just down in Texas 5 6 weeks ago for a sales meeting, and we did go and look at this new facility. This new facility is 120,000 square feet,
Wow.
and it is so state of the art. I mean, man, it's incredible. Like even to the point where they thought of like, for instance, like the table in the like lunch area for like when people are doing training and stuff like that. The table has like the chargers where you just put your phone on the table and charges up your phone and stuff like that. It's like part of the technology. And then the other cool part is that they have this like little like cubicle where it's soundproof so that you could go into this room and have a private conversation with either a client or somebody from back at your shop and not have everybody else and not have that worry about somebody else overhearing you. Because normally what you would do is you would like leave and go outside and go walk around the parking lot to try and avoid, somebody overhearing that. But like the new training centers, there's now six rooms of training centers instead of three, I guess, what we currently have. So we doubled the number, but also like way larger. The reception, I mean, everything. And the craziest part is that original facility that was around 50,000 square feet and it had been bumped up by another 20,000 was busting at the seams with window film and paper protection film.
Right.
But the window film, so what I'm really proud about is that if you look at those reports, you're going to see something interesting. And that is that XPEL now sells more square footage of window film than it sells of paint protection film. So I don't know. I just thought that's maybe the
That's
important closing. Something that we hadn't talked about is that Charlotte facility coming together, but the San Antonio facility is ultra modern. I mean, you're going to think of like a Tesla factory, an Apple factory, or something like that in terms of when you see it. And the clean room and everything like that that's being done, and the equipment that's being designed specifically for it is marvelous. And then to consider the fact that right now that facility that when I went into 3 years ago was like, wow, like we'll never use all this. Every single inch of square footage of shelving space was utilized, but so was the centers in between the shelves stacked with, you know,
yeah.
pallets and pallets of film. Just really exciting times. I'm just super excited for where XPEL is and where it's going, and I feel like you said, like the industry as a whole is doing that. So yeah, that's it.
Well, congratulations on the success and keep killing it. You're doing amazing things for Expel and Expel for the industry in general. And the saying that's been thrown around is, the tide rises all or the tide all ships rise with the tide, something along those lines. And I
Yeah.
believe that is definitely the case. And really, it's exciting. It's fun to watch, and keep killing it. I can't wait to hear in a year or two, hey, remember that Tint Wizdom where I was telling you about the new location? And now that's busting at the seams and we're expanding to it.
My boss, Mike Mail, said give it 2 years.
Give it
He's
to
convinced 2 years is all it's going to take. Like, you know what? But we put it in Fullerton, we put in Vegas, we put in two in Canada, we put this one in going in Charlotte. He's like, yep, mark my words, 2 years. I'm like,
hmm
okay, you were right last time. You're probably right again this time. So
Yep.
listen, without any further ado, thank you as well, Eric. I love doing these podcasts, as you know, and I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate what you're doing for the industry, and of course, Tint Wiz itself as a program, I think is unbelievable. I highly recommend it, as you know, to clients. So keep doing what you're doing, buddy.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you saying that. I appreciate you doing this. The video today obviously completely sucked, but the audio is crisp and clear, and that's what's important. So, again, thanks, Chris, and I'll look forward to the next one.
Sounds good.